Telecast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to the penultimate telecast of 2023. My guest this week is Michael Boccacino, Senior Director of Content Partnerships at award-winning TheSoul Publishing, one of the world's most prolific and popular online media companies, with huge audiences across YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Snap, Pinterest, and TikTok. Michael, welcome to Telecast.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks so much for having me.
And it's wonderful to have a guest from LA again. It's a little while since we've had anybody on the west coast of the States. How's things over there? I keep seeing various things in the press about extreme weather events this year in LA. Is it all still there? Is it everything's still holding together in LA?
Still standing. It's actually been quite a mellow winter so far. Normally we have a string of wildfires, but we had such great rains this season. It's been lovely and sunny out, and I'm sitting here sipping my cup of coffee, having this lovely day as we're chatting.
Just to double check, when it rains, does everything still grind to a halt in LA?
Yeah, nobody knows what to do. It's like not a state of emergency, but more of a state of flustered, panicked driving down those freeways for the most part.
Yeah, and everybody's meetings getting cancelled because they can't make
Exactly.
it on the freeway.
Can't be bothered to leave the house.
Well, listen, Michael, thank you for joining us. Great to have you on the show. TheSoul Publishing is a really interesting business, and we're going to get into talking about the business in a little while. But before we do, I like to start the show and have a chat with our executive guests about their career journeys and how they've got to where they are. Now, you're Senior Director of Content Partnerships at TheSoul Publishing. So tell us about your career so far, how you got into the digital first and the content space. What's your background?
I got my start at Disney. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, or nearby in Orlando, Florida, where I was going to school. And so my very first taste of the digital business was at Disney, basically updating their websites with new copy and eventually producing websites and videos. From there, I ended up taking a job in New York with a company called Buddy Media. This was back in, I think, 2009, when social media was becoming a thing that a lot of companies were paying attention to for the first time. And Buddy Media was launching this SaaS platform to help advertisers run campaigns on this new thing called Facebook. We were launching Facebook tabs, if you remember what Facebook tabs were like back in the day, these little microsites that lived on Facebook. So I essentially started helping teach brands about social. Again, this is back in 2009, so there was a lot of material or even playbooks about how you're supposed to run campaigns on social. When we were in meetings, my CEO at the time, Mike Lazaro, would often say, what's the ROI of putting on your pants in the morning? Same thing with social. You kind of know you need to do it, even if there's not a clear benefit, at least back at that time. So we were kind of making it up as we went along. And the company eventually sold to Salesforce for about $800 million. And I ended up cashing out my options, packing my bags, and heading west to LA. And that's when I got started in the media industry and kind of pivoting from social media into digital media when I started working at BuzzFeed. They were opening up their office in Los Angeles. And I pivoted from teaching brands about social to working with partners like Facebook and Snapchat and YouTube, and really owning those partnerships from a media perspective in terms of identifying new ways to work together and new types of content formats to launch. And I've been in that space ever since. I've been at TheSoul for about 3.5 years now, really helping identify new partnership opportunities, new ways to monetize. And for the last, I guess, 1.5 years, almost 2 years, we've been pivoting from social to streaming content and taking a lot of the learnings and a lot of the content that we've developed for social and finding new ways to distribute it across streaming.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we're going to come and talk a little bit about that in a second when we talk about FAST, and we'll talk about all the different ways of monetizing content when you don't have a commissioning broadcaster or a commissioning platform, which is obviously still quite foreign to, I think, to some of our listeners when it comes to the B2B business of content and digital first. Let's talk about TheSoul Publishing again. For those who haven't come across the business, take us back to the beginning of TheSoul Publishing and how it's developed into the business it is today.
Yeah, the TheSoul Publishing is an interesting company. We've been around for quite a while now, over 10 years. And we initially started off as a website called AdMe that was dedicated to reviewing marketing campaigns. And it was very advertising and industry focused. And then around 2016, I hope I'm getting that right. We launched our first video format called called Brightside. Brightside was this channel dedicated to riddles and science facts and sort of uplifting positive content. And when we launched that on Facebook, it quickly became one of the top 10 channels on all of Facebook. Quickly, 5 Minute Crafts followed, which is a DIY crafting channel. We're now the number one digital crafting brand in the world. And as a whole, TheSoul Publishing has about 2.5 billion followers across all of our different brands and channels. And we get about 25 billion views per month.
Wow. Let's just pause for a second. There's 2 billion.
It's a staggering number.
Yeah. I mean, when everybody talks about social media and successive channels, everybody talks about big numbers. But that is an extraordinary number. 2 billion followers. And that's across, whether it be Snapchat, Facebook, or all the other digital platforms out there. That's an extraordinary number. That's got to be one of the most followed digital publishing brands in the world, surely.
If you look at online traffic or online video views across Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and what have you, we are the number one digital media company in the world, surpassing Disney and Netflix. And then obviously there's a different type of view on social versus on streaming, but we do have a considerable following across all the platforms. And we've really cracked the code on what works on social.
Perhaps your best known brand is 5 Minute Crafts, right? And that is something that explain 5 Minute Crafts to us for those who haven't come across it.
So 5 Minute Crafts is a crafting channel where you could find videos about life hacks, at-home decor projects. For example, taking a old car tire from your garage and transforming it into a coffee table. At the same time, you could find great tips for basic kitchen hacks, like the best way to peel an avocado, or those are the kinds of things you'll find on 5 Minute Crafts. It's a very diverse mix of content featuring more aspirational crafting projects to simple life hacks you can use at home.
Presumably that started on YouTube, or did that start on Facebook? Tell us about the journey of that brand in terms of the different platforms and where it performs best.
We started off on Facebook for the most part with Brightside and 5 Minute Crafts. And once we sort of established that Facebook, we were really crushing it on Facebook. Both of those channels were top 10 and still are. We pivoted to YouTube, and that's where our platform really started to grow. A lot of our formats are translated into the different languages. So we quickly started figuring out that there was this massive global appetite for the kind of universal content that we were creating. So on YouTube, we grew from 5 Minute Crafts to also launching kids crafting channel, Slick Slime Sam. We also launched a teen comedy channel called 123 Go, and just continued cracking these formats that really resonated with users on YouTube, but also on Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok. So we just kept going and we keep identifying new ways to connect with our audiences. We recently launched a number of kids animated channels, including Baby Zoo, which is one of the fastest growing kids channels on YouTube Kids. So we're continuing to identify new formats all the time.
When it comes to production then of original content, because I'm presuming it is all original content that's across your channels. Do you license anything in, or it's all your own?
We do license occasional pieces of content, but for the most part, everything you see on our channels is produced at one of our 3 studios in Limassol, Budapest, and Riga, Latvia.
That shows the international nature of your business as well. Now, it was actually formed in Limassol in Cyprus, wasn't it? Tell us the background of that.
Correct. Yeah. The company is headquartered in Limassol. We have a massive production enterprise there with studios on the ground. And we are technically a fully remote company. Obviously, we have our content studios that are producing all of our videos. But when you look at a video from TheSoul Publishing, it may be scripted by someone in New York, voiced over by someone in London, and then edited by someone in Los Angeles. So it really is an international production. And I think that gives our videos a very unique global flavor, which is one of the key ingredients for their success.
When you're shooting some content, let's say in Limassol, and you're producing it obviously for maybe 4 or 5 different platforms, potentially, maybe more. How do you go about doing that when it comes to ensuring that the content is native to the platform that you're producing on? So, for example, if you've got a Snapchat video, are you using phones as well as digital cameras to capture that content? Are you shooting it in vertical? Yeah. How does the production of that content actually work? Because the amount of content that you're publishing and the number of followers that you have. Obviously, what you're doing is working. So I'm just interested to understand the production process, if you like, that leads to such a successful brand.
It's such an interesting question because coming from a place like BuzzFeed, where back in the heyday, there were multiple regional offices around the world that were shooting different types of content for YouTube versus Snapchat versus Facebook, and then also having regional content teams. At TheSoul, we approach it a little bit differently, and I've really come around to changing my sort of perspective on the way that content is made, because we will shoot a single video for 5-minute crafts that's, produced in a way that we could convert it easily to vertical or horizontal. But then we'll take that piece of content and use that same core footage across every platform. We might modify them for, in different ways, where on TikTok, we'll use the TikTok text box. On Snapchat, we'll use a Snapchat filter. But for the most part, it's the same core piece of content. And what we've really figured out is that good content is universal. And if you're really good at what you do, you don't need to produce bespoke content for every single platform. You can find other ways to localize it and augment it in a way that is catered to those audiences without needing to, invest in multiple productions in order to crack those audiences.
So when we come to talk about money generation, which is what we're all chasing at the end of the day, okay, you have big audiences and that's great, but that sort of ad revenue only goes so far, doesn't it? There's always different ways to look at new revenue streams, particularly when you've got as many successful brands as you have. We've spoken to many different people within the digital first sector over the last few weeks and talking to them about new partnerships that they've done and new sectors that they've moved into, from being a digital publisher to perhaps building a brand that's becomes a fast food brand, or it becomes a hospitality brand, or whatever that is. Tell us about all of your brands that are now starting to move into different sectors, and maybe you're starting to license your successful brands into new areas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's exciting because we have predominantly been a company that was focused on scale. We're looking to grow these massive audiences, which we would then activate for monetization through the programmatic advertising models that exist on YouTube and Snapchat. And now that we have that massive audience, we're certainly looking ahead to what's next. One of my biggest focuses of the last couple of years, like I said before, is streaming and taking our videos and repackaging them into longer episodes that are suited for the Rokus and the Samsungs of the world. And then most recently, we've started experimenting with licensed products. We have a new crafting kit that just launched at Walmart. It's on stores right now for the holidays, which we're very excited about with our partners at Emson. So we're starting to figure out how to take the formats that we've cracked on social and try to unlock new ways to engage with those communities that we've built in different ways.
Coming back to the repackaging of content for new streaming services and fast channels. I mean, fast has been the buzzword of this year pretty much, or certainly the last 18 months when it comes to the content industry, as well as AI. And we'll come on to talk about AI. There's no conversation with a content industry exec would be complete without discussing AI at some point, but we'll park that for a second and come back to it. So fast channels, but also licensing of your own original content. Let's look at that first of all. So when it comes to licensing your own content, the areas that you're talking about, particularly since COVID, have become very, very popular when it comes to crafts and people thinking about upcycling, for example, and this sort of content that is very, very useful and educational with a small e. Is this something that you've looked at, building your short form content into longer form and then licensing that into traditional linear networks? Is that something that you're focusing on? Or are you very much focused on keeping your own channels and building your own channels with new fast partners like Samsung TV Plus, and you mentioned Roku and other platforms?
It's certainly been the latter. When we first started having these conversations, it was hard to sort of get anyone to pay attention to us because we were viewed as a social content studio that didn't really have much to do with streaming. But I think over the last year and change, there's been a bigger shift in the perspective of those companies as the audiences who watch YouTube get older and are looking for those brands that they grew up with, like 5-Minute Crafts and like Brightside. There's certainly been more interest from the streamers in taking on content like ours. And you can see that in a platform like Roku, where they now have a creator carousel on their homepage where you can find content from your favorite YouTube creators. So there's been a shift. And we've certainly noticed that when we get our content on these platforms, it performs just as well as it did on YouTube because we've created stuff that people like to watch. From our perspective, it's been a very positive experience. And there's only been growing interest in the kinds of content we're making from the streamers as they look to be competitive with younger audiences.
So in terms of your own branded channels, is that something that's perhaps in the future, or is it more individual shows that you're looking to place and license as opposed to building your own 5 Minute Craft channel, for example, on a fast channel?
So we've been mostly focused on the single IP channels on Fast. So we have a number of channels on VOD, on Roku and platforms like that. For Fast, we're on Samsung, we're on Rakuten, we're on Kadoodle and Sensical and a number of other places. Our Fast channel for 5 Minute Crafts was recently nominated for Fast Channel of the Year at MIPCOM. So we've made a pretty good splash and we're getting good views. I think the thing that we're constantly trying to navigate is just the volume of other players that are in the marketplace. It's just such a competitive space right now, and you have to have a clear competitive advantage of what you're making and why you think audiences are going to be able to discover your content on their platforms.
And do you think these new opportunities when it comes to the streamers and other businesses out there who are interested in your content, is that going to change your development processes to creating new brands, do you think? And also how you're shooting it as well? Because it might add another layer. For example, You might want longer form content than you've actually ever produced before for a particular outlet or a particular platform. Is that something that you're very much considering going forward, iterating your process as you move forward?
That's such an interesting question because, I think when we were first getting on YouTube, there was this push towards longer videos. And then they shifted to shorts where it's all about the shorter videos. And you're seeing the same thing on TikTok right now where everything started off as a couple of, 15, 30 seconds. And now it's getting into the 10-minute mark where TikTok's trying to expand what the platform is capable of. So for us, it's less about chasing run times and just cracking video formats that work for an audience, and we'll figure out the rest of it later. But yeah, down the line, in success of building up these great partnerships with streamers, I think you could certainly see something like 5 Minute Crafts evolving and finding new ways to connect with people. Same way where we're now moving into building products around 5 Minute Crafts. I think the brand is flexible enough to accommodate different types of formats and different types of video structures. So TBD, but it's something we're certainly paying attention to.
So we're coming to the end of the year. It's been a bumpy ride, I think, for many in the content industry, let's say. And I think that's affected everybody when it comes to digital first businesses like yours, because we've seen, the advertising crisis that's hit lots of publishing businesses. And of course, all the other issues with regard to inflation and all the other issues that have led to a lot of the linear businesses not commissioning content in the same sort of volumes, if at all, this year. What is the main thing that you think you've learned this year when it comes to TheSoul Publishing in terms of the business, the things that have worked for you and perhaps what you're going to be taking forward into 2024? Because I think there's a phrase that I'm starting to hear, which is survive till 25, which is everybody's expecting 24 to be kind of the same, maybe a little bit better, but kind of the same. And it's not until 25 that some of the forecasts about money returning to content will be realized. What is it that you're going to take forward, do you think, from this year into 24?
For us, it's really about diversification, not, being on a number of different platforms, making sure you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and also just diversification in the types of revenue streams you're participating in, whether that's programmatic model, whether that's direct sales, whether that's streaming. Just finding new ways and being scrappy about the ways that your company can make money, I think, is going to be vital for the next year. And I think everybody knows that, but I think it's about finding where you're strongest and really investing in that in the right ways. So that's what we're focused on. We know we connect with audiences, and we know we're really good at distributing our content in lots of different ways across lots of different platforms. And having that skill set has allowed us to survive and thrive, even despite the downturn in advertising spends.
And when it comes to the wider, more traditional TV industry, Michael, you're Senior Director of Content Partnerships at TheSoul Publishing. What sort of partnerships will you be looking to strike in the year ahead? What are the areas that you're really focused on building the Soul Publishing's brands into? Where do you want to take it next when it comes to partnerships within the more traditional area of the TV and content industry?
We're excited to continue expanding on streaming. My wish list for the next couple of years is eventually to get one of our formats on a linear channel potentially. I think that for us, just continuing to crack new ways to distribute content is so vital and so important. So even though, you're seeing declines in linear television, I think for us, we'd love to be everywhere that people are viewing, videos. 5 Minute Crafts is a global brand with global recognition, and we think it deserves to be in as many places as possible. So continued expansion on streaming, maybe at some point in the near future on your television sets as well.
And when you say on your TV sets with a linear partner, are you talking about repackaging older content, or are you talking about original productions for linear partners?
Short-term, licensed content. Long-term, I think we would love to figure out new ways that 5 Minute Crafts could connect with people.
All right. I get the impression that you're on the way to doing something in that space, Michael. I won't push you on that, but sounds very exciting. And listen, congratulations on the success that you've had this year.
Thank you so much.
And now it's time for Story of the Week, the part of the show where my guests get to highlight the TV industry story that's caught their eye of the past 7 days. Michael, what's your story of the week?
So I saw an article recently in the New York Times all about the evolution of AI and where OpenAI and where Anthropic came from. And it helped me contextualize a lot of the chaos that we've been seeing in that part of the industry. And I think it's so vital as a content company and a content studio just to be aware of where those conversations started from in order to figure out where they're going. As a creative company that produces video content, we have a large team of creatives, and I'm always conscious of, how we're going to move forward and be competitive when there's so many changes in the air. And for me, sort of understanding in this article, the genesis of OpenAI is this conversation between Elon Musk and Larry Page, and this divide between, human creativity and all the different advances we're seeing in AI creativity. For me, it was really a really great summary of how we got to where we are today.
It's just changed the landscape completely in the past sort of 12, 14 months, I think, since
it's wild.
Since ChatGPT came to prominence. I think it was last November or something with their, I think it was the 4th iteration. And it sort of blew everything up, and everybody's really looking at their own businesses and seeing, how they're incorporating AI into their businesses. So you're right, it is interesting to see Elon Musk again right in the middle of this conversation with his own products, but also the way that he's been involved with OpenAI going back years. You're right. It's a fascinating thing. We'll put a link in the episode description to that article, Michael. And I think you probably need a subscription to read it, but there we are. It might be worthwhile. Everybody taking a trial out to the New York Times.
It is.
To have a look at it. But when it comes to AI and the Soul Publishing, what are you using now? I mean, are you using it right across the business? I mean, is it being integrated into absolutely everything in this, what seems to be the quickening pace of development production? You talked about competitive advantage and keeping up with everybody, and that's what it's doing, isn't it? It's speeding up ideas, speeding up production, speeding up editing, speeding up every aspect and bringing new ideas. Are you using it right across the business, or are you sort of still testing it and sort of tweaking it and being a little bit more cautious, or are you in with both feet and seeing what it can do for your business?
We've been in with both feet for a number of years now. One of the reasons we're able to distribute as efficiently and as broadly as we have is due to our platform, our internal proprietary distribution tool called the TheSoul platform. It's an in-house AI-powered one-stop shop for managing everything you need to create content. The simple way to describe it is, you shoot a single video, the AI automatically creates a vertical and a horizontal version of it without needing extensive editing. So not just chopping off the ends of the video, but creating a thoughtful composition that you could quickly put on TikTok and YouTube at the same time. So for us, we got in really early, and the next step is just taking those new advances in AI and incorporating them in different ways. But in terms of distribution, we've been there for a while.
I'm not churning out the amount of video that TheSoul Publishing is, but I came across a tool which Jason from the Connected Set pointed out on one of our older episodes when we did the top 10 tools for producers, which is probably out of date now. I came across one tool which is it does exactly what you're saying, and also, captions the videos, and it's just extraordinary. And it does it all from a YouTube link from your longer form version, which is probably a similar sort of thing to what you're doing. But how many videos do you publish a day?
Oh my goodness. I would say we produce a couple hundred a month.
Right.
I don't know if I can give you a daily quote, but yeah, 25 billion views, a couple hundred videos a month. So we're quite the operation.
Yeah. I mean, you have obviously a full edit team who are operating and overseeing this, and because nothing's perfect yet, is it?
That's the thing. It's a good creative tool. It's not a replacement for human ingenuity, but it can help them work faster and more efficiently and open up new ways for them to do cool things.
When it comes to next year with AI, if we're talking in a year's time, is there any particular aspect of your daily business that you think will be transformed even further by AI? Or do you think it's just going to be a general sort of speeding up and efficiency drive across every aspect of what you're doing?
For me, the coolest things I've seen are just the ability to add really interesting filters and special effects in really low touch ways. For example, you can take the single piece of video, and some of the tests I've seen that we've been running internally, you can change the age of someone almost with like the touch of a button, and it's wild. So you can quickly adjust your creative and make these really dramatic choices. So for us, I'm really excited to see how we take that and crack new formats, just knowing that we have this massive power to tweak creatively the videos we make.
And what about AI avatars and using it for speech translation? Obviously, a lot of people are doing that now, and dictation and everything else. But when it comes to videos and creating characters and avatars, is that something that you've done? Is that something that you might do in the future?
Funny you should ask. We actually launched a virtual avatar pop star called Polar last year, maybe even 2 years ago at this point. And she's got 2 million followers on YouTube, 2 million followers on TikTok. She's performed virtual concerts in Avocan Life. She's about to perform one in Roblox, which should be announced later this week officially. We've certainly experimented with that type of creating those types of personalities because there is such a push to, I think, create these new characters in the digital spaces, or be competitive in a different way against the creators and the influencers that you see on Instagram and TikTok.
Fascinating area. Well, we'll also put a link in the episode description to that. What was the character's name again?
Her name is Polar, and her TikTok handle is i.am.polar.
And now it's time for Michael's hero of the week and who or what he's telling to get in the bin. Michael, who's your hero of the week?
My hero of the week was Kara Swisher. She is my favorite tech reporter. And whenever something massive is happening in the industry, like everything we saw with Sam Altman and OpenAI a few weeks back, she was on Twitter, or I guess X now, really dropping these great tidbits of all the things that were happening within the company and in Silicon Valley when all that was unspooling. So for me, she's my go-to destination whenever there's a big news story happening in the tech and media space.
Right. Okay. He's your hero of the week. You're keeping a close eye on him, no doubt.
Yeah.
And who or what you tend to get in the bin, Michael?
Get in the bin for me, going back to that same article, there was a quote from Larry Page about his conversation with Elon Musk and debating whether or not artificial intelligence should be considered as a replacement for human ingenuity. I think the argument they were describing was a speciesist argument, and whether or not you're launching these artificial intelligences, whether or not they should be allowed to replace human beings. And for me, I think the most interesting thing about AI, as I said before, is that it's a creative augmentation. It's not a replacement for people. Human ingenuity and human creativity should always come first. And that's what excites me most about these tools, is the ability to get people to do cooler things more quickly, but not replace the human mind and all the beautiful things that come out of it.
Well, let's see. I'm sure there'll be some sort of regulations put in place because everyone's slightly worried about it running away with us a little bit, aren't they? So, but we'll see. But you're right. Amazing developments in the last 12 months in that space, and much more to come in the next 12. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Really enjoyed chatting with you and hearing about TheSoul Publishing's really fascinating business and definitely one to watch. We'll watch all the developments with interest in 2024 with the business. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Justin. It's been a pleasure.
Well, that's about it for this week's show. Telecast was edited by Ian Chambers and recorded in London. Next week, on our final show of the year, we welcome media cartologist Evan Shapiro back to Telecast to discuss the year that's been and what lies ahead in 2024 for the content industry. Until then, stay safe.